The stove stays minded right now. It's the morning of Wednesday, July 28th. 2 days out, 48 hours from the 2021 MLB trade deadline. And this episode is all about the AL West. And it was going to be regardless of what happened this morning, because yesterday, Tuesday, the Seattle Mariners were quite active. I'll get into that. The Houston Astros made a good addition. But then this morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at, big splash. Big move. Starling Marte is going to Oakland to the Athletics in a 1-for-1 swap for left-handed pitcher Jesus Luzardo going to the Miami Marlins. I'm sure you've heard the name. These are a couple of good names. An established veteran hitter, a promising young pitcher. I really like this. Let me get into it. So Marte was the Marlins' top trade chip, a consistent producer at the plate for most of his 10-year career. You know what you're going to get. And this year in Miami, Starling has hit over 300 with an on-base percentage over 400. And the power's there as usual, plus a decent glove in center field. A very well-rounded player, one of the best position players available at the deadline, I would say. Indeed, the Athletics beat out the Yankees, Astros, and Giants for Marte's services. He is a rental. The Marlins could not come to an extension with Marte, and that's why Miami's GM Kim Ng pulled the trigger. Marlins will have to cover the tab on Marte's salary. No surprise, given that it's Brooklyn and they can barely get a ballpark built. The Athletics, what about them? Well, they're pushing for October as usual. Right now, they're 6 games back of Houston for the division, which is within reach. But more importantly, the A's have the second wildcard spot with a game in hand over the Seattle Mariners. Oakland's strength is on the mound this season. Good pitching staff. Although their offense isn't bad by any means, they did need to add firepower. A's are 16th in the majors in team OPS. Starling Marte will give him just that. He's out hitting everybody in the A's lineup right now. I threw in Matt Olson's name in my notes just because Olson is just slugging out of his mind. But Marte, in a lot of metrics, outperforming anybody in the A's lineup. And he will join an outfield consisting of Ramon Laureano, currently Athletics center fielder. Maybe one of them will have to move to the corners. And in Oakland's left field, they have Mark Canha. Hard hitter, but not a good fielder. Maybe he will move to the designated hitter spot, where Mitch Moreland has been adequate. I think I got Steven Piscotty in right field. He's been hitting like a has-been. We'll get less playing time at least. Good move based on need for the Athletics. But what do they give up in return? Well, going to Miami is left-handed pitcher Jesus Luzardo. He's been talked about a lot as a high-end pitching prospect for a few years now. He's 23 years old, from Peru. And he has yet to assert himself at the big league level. Okay, his 2020 rookie season was okay, nothing special. Shown flashes, of course, but then 2021 has been even worse. On the year, Luzardo owns an ERA and FIP in the 6s, giving up a ton of hits and lots of them hard hits. But the Marlins are a team with eyes on the future. Lots of quality youth on their big league roster already, including, especially, the rotation, where another lefty in Trevor Rogers is making a case for NL Rookie of the Year. He's already an all-star this season. And there's also Sandy Alcantara and Pablo Lopez, both in their mid-20s and pitching well for the Marlins. Not to mention Sixto Sanchez lurking on the minor league IL too. So less pressure on Luzardo, you can argue that. And still time for the Lizard King to figure it out. Marlins get him with 4+ years of team control. He signed through 2025. He played high school ball in Florida, so maybe this is the change Luzardo needs. The high-velocity fastball is there. The curveball is disgusting. I'm talking stuff, and the Marlins can clearly develop pitchers, so I'd like to see where this goes. for Luzardo's development and for how far Marte can take the Athletics, what kind of an impact he'll have. He's become somewhat of a journeyman these last couple years, but a high-level journeyman, so always on the lookout for Starling Marte when it comes to the Stove. Who else will the Oakland Athletics have? Well, any team that's willing to cover the salary of whoever they're trading is probably looking for them. They could use another bat in the infield, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go after pitching depth as well, just because everybody needs that. As for Miami, they should be selling, and they should continue with first baseman Jesus Aguilar and outfielder Adam Duvall, 2 veteran bats with an extra year of control for teams seeking that, unless the Marlins really believe that they're going to be competitive in 2022, which they might be. And at least is more open than people realize, and as I touched on, good young rotation and some good young position players too. Shout out Jazz Chisholm over at second base. So the Athletics getting a leg up in the AL West, and that was after a flurry of moves by the Seattle Mariners. Yeah, listen, this team is doing something, okay? The Mariners are 55-47. They're 1 game back of Oakland in the wild card. And the GM in charge is Jerry Dipoto. And he's known for being, let's say, erratic. And the moves he made have caused anguish and anger in the Mariners clubhouse and amongst the Mariners fan base. What happened? Well, Seattle traded their closer, Kendall Graveman, the right-handed sinker baller who's having an outstanding season. And it's not just that they traded Graveman, they sent him to a division rival in the Houston Astros. And this trade was pulled before the Astros and Mariners played each other. They were taking batting practice when this came out. Everyone's really upset in the Mariners. There were tears. The words passed on to reporters who were circling the players like vultures was betrayal. This really, really blew things up. Okay, but let's take it back to Kendall Graveman, because what's happening here? This guy's been in the league for a while. And for most of his career, he was never more than a league average starter. In 2019, he underwent Tommy John surgery, and when he came back in 2020, he moved from the rotation to the bullpen. And then this year, he transformed into one of the best closers in baseball. I mean, what a pivot. 33 innings and 3 runs allowed. That's a 0.82 ERA. The sinker is rolling. The slider is giving batters hell, and including his new teammates. Houston hitters were 1 for 10 against Graveman this year. Kendall is a rental, so his value is very in the moment, and in the moment he's doing great. So, yeah, I mean, you look at his resume, okay, he's never been a great pitcher before this season, but you got to cash in what's happening right now. And I think the Astros got the reliever they needed at a good price. Houston's closer, Ryan Presley, has been sturdy, but the rest of the bullpen has not. Cumulatively, the Astros relief corps is middle of the pack with a 4.16 ERA and a 1.3 whip. Astros do have to bear the burden of right-handed reliever Rafael Montero. As part of this deal, Montero started 2021 as Seattle's closer, but he was so bad he got DFA'd. So there's that aspect to it. Who did the Mariners get for Kendall Graveman, who you could argue was one of their best trade chips? I mean, a closer at the deadline, having a hot season. He's a rental, so that kind of pushes it back a bit as far as the return. But the Mariners get right-handed relief pitcher Joe Smith and infielder Abraham Toro. Let's analyze this deal right now, because the Mariners have a lot of youth coming up. Maybe they should be looking towards the future, but at the same time, they're trying to compete. They're trying to capitalize on what's been a very good season. Well, both these guys coming in for Graveman, Toro and Smith, are MLB players. So I guess this is supposed to make the Mariners a more well-rounded team in exchange for their most dominant player. Well, the clubhouse is upset about this trade, and that's an understatement. Okay, equipment was broken after the game versus Houston. Words of hurt were directed at Dipoto. Always playing fantasy baseball up there in his suite. He is not seen as an executive who's dedicated to winning. The Mariners, the players, they're hating on him. Well, allow me to add a little bit of a third perspective into this. Okay, the Mariners are a meme. Their run differential is minus 51, on par with the Colorado Rockies. They're 23-8 in one-run games. They've been very lucky, and if they want to keep the postseason dream alive, as I'm sure those angry players do, Seattle has to spread some talent around the roster. But I'm not sure if these new guys will get the job done. Let's start with Abraham Toro. Tempting, if a wholly unproven solution to the Mariners' pothole at second base, where Dylan Moore and Shed Long have combined to hit below 200 this season, but that's about as good as Toro has been at the big league level. Over 300 plate appearances now for the 24-year-old switch-hitting infielder, 193 career batting average. It's not good. Toro's minor league numbers are excellent. Scouts have sung his praises, but he just hasn't cut it at this level. Or this could be the change Toro needs. Who knows? He'll have time to figure it out with 4+ years of team control. Contract runs through 2025. Yes, the Mariners should be looking towards the future, but I'm skeptical if Abraham Toro is the solution. Maybe he's a diamond in the rough. We'll have to see. As for the other guy, right-handed pitcher Joe Smith. Now, believe it or not, one of only 2 Joe Smiths to ever play Major League Baseball. The other guy caught 14 games for the Yankees in 1913 and dipped. Never played again. That Joe Smith was 19 years old, probably a bricklayer or something. This Joe Smith is 37 years old. He's a 14-year big league veteran, and his resume is mostly good. Take away this season, and you have a decent, if not deadly, bullpen piece. Sidearm delivery, third base release point. Not long ago, Joe Smith was a key part of the Astros relief corps. Problem is, 2021 has not been kind to old Joe Smith. Opposing batters are hitting 375 off of him with a 996 OPS. Brutal. Maybe if change of scenery is good. I keep saying that, but Joe Smith is just a rental. I don't know, Mariners had to add someone to the bullpen with both their best and worst relievers gone to the Astros in one trade. A perplexing trade to say the least. I got to give Houston the W here. Unless Abraham Toro breaks out, could the Mariners have gotten more for Graveman? Arguably. And you look at the Twins, they traded Nelson Cruz, who's having an excellent year, and he's much more of a proven commodity than Graveman is. And all the Twins got from the Rays in that trade was 2 mid-tier pitching prospects. So maybe that's just how the market goes. I thought the Marte for Luzardo trade was a lot fairer in that respect. But with some time left on the clock, I can talk about the other trade the Mariners made. And this was a weird one. There was this whole saga around the Pittsburgh Pirates and left-handed pitcher Tyler Anderson. Okay, the Pirates are selling, and this summer's trade market is light on starting pitchers. So a guy like Anderson has added value. He's a classic 4-starter that is a number 4 in the rotation with an ERA somewhere in the 4s. And that's exactly who the Philadelphia Phillies needed. In their first summer under Dave Dombrowski, an executive whose reputation is impatient when it comes to winning, Philadelphia is 3.5 games back of the Mets for the division. 50-50, a pure 500 record, without a lot of assets to play with, given the mammoth contracts they gave to JT Realmuto and Bryce Harper and Zach Wheeler, given the lack of trade chips available on Philadelphia's end, given the JT Realmuto trade most glaringly, and the fact that a lot of their young players are supposed to supplement the more established players the Phillies have gotten via trade or the free agent market haven't delivered whatsoever. Scott Kingery, Mickey Moniak, Alec Boehm, who the hell are these guys? Now, Phillies rotation is headlined by Zach Wheeler, who is having an outstanding campaign. Cy Young worthy were it not for Jacob deGrom. And then number 2s and 3s, Aaron Nola, Zach Eflin, they've been all right. But the rest of the staff, Vince Velasquez, Matt Moore, Chase Anderson, gruesome. Throw them off a cliff. The Phillies and Pirates were very close to a deal on Tuesday. The players were in place. Reports were coming out that the deal was final. But when medical records on Phillies pitching prospect Cristian Hernandez came in, the Pirates didn't like what they saw. The deal fell apart, and Jerry Dipoto swooped in. Yes, the Seattle Mariners snuck in and got Tyler Anderson via trade for 2 minor leaguers, catcher Carter Binns, Sounds like a recycling company. Right-handed pitcher Joaquin Tejada. Both these guys are deep prospects. Benz, the more developed of the two, is ranked 29th in the Mariners system. He's projected to be a backup catcher in the bigs by scouts. And Tejada's an 18-year-old. Yeah, about fair for Tyler Anderson. But I bet a few teams tight on budget, needed arm depth, are seething right now, the Phillies especially. Tyler Anderson does make the Mariners better, I will say that. Their rotation has upside. Indeed, it is pitching that's keeping Seattle afloat this season. Chris Flexen, Yusei Kikuchi, and Logan Gilbert have done all right. But James Paxton was lost for the season. Justin Dunn and Justice Sheffield are on the IL. And Marco Gonzalez is not looking like his old self. Definitely not looking like the number one starter he was supposed to be for Seattle. So a low-cost upgrade for the Mariners, yeah, a good move here. But not there. I do not understand the Kendall Graveman trade at all. I guess silver lining, the Astros don't get Craig Kimbrell. That would upset me a little bit. Could they really not get anything better for Graveman? I understand the season's probably an anomaly for him, but he's a rental. Okay. It was the best piece they could have used to upgrade their offense, which is not good, and it didn't happen. And I don't see why they would trade Kyle Seager or Mitch Haniger at this moment unless they really are committed to a rebuild. And I guess if you've pissed the players off enough for them to be breaking equipment and shouting the word betrayal at reporters, I guess burn it all down in Seattle, right? Okay, whatever. Let's get to the trade rumors because the Cubs are running around the rumor mill. Cubs and the Giants have discussed a Chris Bryant trade. Right? That'd be some KB in San Francisco. And the Cubs and Red Sox have been talking to Anthony Rizzo. That would be really, really interesting given the Red Sox do need an offensive upgrade at first base. And Rizzo, remember, was on the Red Sox very early in his career. Cubs are also getting interest in right-handed reliever Ryan Tepera, as they should be. I've said that the starting pitching market this trade deadline is not very good, but it's improved a lot with the Nationals collapse because Max Scherzer is apparently willing to waive his no-trade clause to get out of Washington. 8 teams and maybe more are in the mix for Mad Max. Love to see that. Scherzer in a different uniform, yeah, let's see it. And the Nationals have received a lot of interest in shortstop Trey Turner as well. Understandably, but Trey tested positive for COVID recently. We'll see how that all plays out. What's worse in DC is Steven Strasburg is done for the season. He's going to have thoracic outlet surgery on his neck. That does not sound good. And in the last episode, I was talking big about, the San Diego Padres and AJ Preller just, being a no-holds-barred sort of executive. Well, this rumor that the Padres are open to trading first baseman Eric Hosmer should all about confirm that. Keep in mind, Hosmer has been mediocre at the plate this season, and that would be a pretty ballsy move to part with Hosmer. He's on a fairly expensive contract, too, so I'm not sure which team will be taken, but worth watching. And a tip of my cap to the Cincinnati Reds, who acquired 3 relievers yesterday, 2 from the New York Yankees in exchange for a player to be named later. How about that? Justin Wilson, who hasn't been good, and Luis Cessa, who has been pretty good this season. Cincy also traded 2 minor league pitchers to Colorado in exchange for Rockies reliever Michael Givens. He's been given a mighty fine effort out of the pen this year. So great little budget moves for the Cincinnati Reds. They are on the fence, but with bums like Amir Garrett providing relief, the Reds desperately needed to improve their bullpen, and they did just that. That's about it for Stove Miners. I don't know what's going to happen next.